gather yourself and then realise, well, this is a dead body. It's obviously been badly mutilated. This person has been murdered, butchered, and we've got a job on our hands.
When a young mother of 4 went missing in the small, quiet town of Darlington, no one knew what to expect until her mutilated torso was found dumped inside a trash bag. Who could have done such a horrible thing, and why? Horrifyingly, it emerged that the killer was someone in town and that he had been going around bragging about the murder. And what's more, he claimed that he had eaten parts of the woman's body. Hi guys, welcome to Crime City. Today we'll look at the scary case of David Harker, the youngest cannibal in the UK who cooked human spaghetti. Julie Patterson was described as lovely, bubbly, and always happy. Despite having gone through more than her fair share of tragedies in life, Julie was always cheerful and wanted to be a great mom to her 4 children. However, having lost her mom at the age of 3, Julie struggled with depression throughout her life. She tried numbing her pain with alcohol and self-medication. That didn't help. By the age of 31, she had been declared an unfit mother and lost her children to social services. This led her to sink more into depression, and she became completely dependent on alcohol and Valium. During this time, Julie was in a loving relationship with her partner, Alan Taylor, but she would often disappear and go on drinking benders and then come back days later.
Or she'd just disappear. We didn't know where she went, but she would just appear back again. Dirty, hair not combed, and she'd just have a bath and a meal and a good sleep, and then she was back to normal the next day.
So when Julie went out the night of April 6th, 1998, Alan wasn't really worried. He figured that she was experiencing one of her episodes and would come back as usual. But unfortunately, this time around, she never did. In fact, it would be the last time that Alan would ever see her alive again.
Like all the other times, just waited till she came back, and obviously started looking when she hadn't come back.
Alan knew something was wrong when Julie missed an appointment with one of her daughters. Julie loved her children, and even in her drunken state, she would never intentionally miss an appointment with them. So what could have happened to her? By this time, Julie had been missing for about 3 weeks, so Alan went to the police and filed a missing persons report. But at the time, he had no idea of the horror that was about to unfold. A search was immediately launched for Julie, with the police posting her picture in the local newspapers, asking anyone with information about her whereabouts to come forward. But as this was going on, a local police officer named David Davis made a grim discovery while searching a secluded area in Darlington with his police dog Tyler. The officer said that his dog had started barking wildly after smelling something suspicious in a nearby garden. The officer went to check what his dog was barking at, and to his horror, he discovered that it was a decomposing woman's torso hidden inside a bin bag.
You could clearly see on the top of the sack the shoulder blades of a human being. Just put everybody into very deep shock. And that shock lasted for a few seconds before you gather yourself and then realise, well, this is a dead body. It's obviously been badly mutilated. This person has been murdered, butchered, and we've got a job on our hands.
Tragically, the torso was later identified as Julie's. What could have happened to her, and where was the rest of her body? The discovery of Julie's mutilated body shook the entire town of Darlington.
There was a massive amount of public interest and just shock. Who could have done this in this town? And how could this happen? This isn't, Merseyside, this isn't Tyneside, it's not inner city. And what's going on? Who have we got living in here? Was he local? Could he have possibly been local?
Around this time, police started receiving alarming calls from several teens reporting that their friend David Harker had been going around telling people that he had killed and mutilated a woman named Julie.
And he boasted about how he'd chopped up Julie, dumped the body in Paulham Lane, and the limbs and the head went out with the rubbish. obviously he was drunk, so I just passed it off, didn't believe him.
At first, everyone thought he was joking and didn't take him seriously. But now that there was a body, people started thinking that maybe it wasn't a joke after all. David was a 23-year-old aspiring musician who had moved to Darlington in 2005 after constantly getting in trouble with the police. But despite his troubled past, David had a way of creating a good impression on everyone he met.
When David was living at mine, he wasn't paying any rent or anything, and my mum didn't mind because he was paying us really in his kindness. Like, he was always doing his bit, you know, cleaning up, tidying up, helped me with my homework. He was always trying to help me because he said he didn't want me to turn out like him.
But as it turned out, David's charming behavior was just a charade to hide what he truly was, a cold-blooded monster. According to his friends, David was obsessed with violence and serial killers and constantly talked about how he wanted to kill people and cut them up. He even had 2 creepy tattoos on his head written subhuman and disorder.
Harker used to tell us stories in funny voices about how he was going to take us down dark, secluded alleyways and kill us and that, but we used to just laugh it off, you know what I mean, think it was funny.
Harker always used to call himself Devil Man. So he'd stand up on the bench and scream, "I'm going to rot in hell, so's everyone else, because I am Devil Man."
The police didn't know what to expect when they went to David's apartment, but the moment they opened the door, they were completely horrified by what they saw. One detective later described it as similar to a scene from The Silence of the Lambs. A trail of red liquid went from the hallway into the kitchen and into David's bedroom, and there at the corner was a huge stain that detectives suspected to be blood.
There was heavy blood staining in the corner of the bedroom. Scientists later told us that that was consistent with a part of Julie's body having been in that corner and blood having soaked through the carpet into the floorboards below.
Police also found Julie's clothes and belongings in the apartment, along with bin bags and a knife with the word "becoming" written on it. There were also some pretty disturbing writings on the wall, one of which read, "Born again with snake's eyes, ... becoming God size." David was arrested and charged with Julie's murder, and this was when the chilling details of what happened to Julie would emerge. Apparently, Julie and David met in a local park and immediately hit it off. After sharing a few drinks, David invited Julie back to his apartment and she innocently agreed, not knowing of the horror that was waiting for her. When they got to the apartment, David told the police that the two slept together, but then he got bored and Julie to death. And like that's not bad enough, this depraved psycho said that he had slept with the body and then removed pieces of flesh from her thigh, which he cooked and ate with spaghetti and cheese. And he didn't stop there. After that, he dragged her down to the basement and kept her there for several weeks while he removed her arms, legs, and head before dumping her torso in what he thought was an abandoned garden.
Julie Patterson's father, brother and sister-in-law entering court this morning to see David James Harker make his first appearance on the charge of murder. David James Harker was led into the courtroom in handcuffs for his own protection and because of the serious nature of the offence. He was flanked by security and other police officers wearing protective jackets guarded the rest of the courtroom. No bail was requested.
Now, get this. Despite having confessed and bragged about mutilating Julie, David's charge was reduced to manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility. He claimed that he was hearing voices when he committed the evil acts and told the psychiatrist that he had killed 2 other people. He talked about being a serial killer like Hannibal Lecter, saying, quote,
"People like me don't come from those films. Them films come from people like me."
However, the police could not find any evidence to support these claims, and they believed that David probably made some things up, especially the part about eating parts of Julie's body in order to gain notoriety. And unfortunately, it worked. His story made headlines in some of the major newspapers, and he was even given the name the Cannibal Killer.
He seemed to be desperate to somehow impress people with what he was saying. And at the time I know that he was trying to contact newspapers and try and convince them that they should write a book about it.
In February 1999, David pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 14 years before he's eligible for parole. But his streak of terror didn't end there. You'll think that after all the pain that he had caused Julie's family, this monster would at least have the decency to tell what he had done with the rest of her remains, but he didn't. The police searched everywhere for the body parts, including the woods, parks, and sewers, but didn't find anything. The pleas from Julie's devastated family fell on deaf ears.
With our fair, we don't feel very well, like, still. It's terrible. On account where he's not saying what he's done with the rest of my daughter's remains, for a start. That's the main thing we want, isn't it, Michael? Remains to be found.
Julie's ex-partner, Freddie Newman, who was also the father of 2 of her children, tried writing him in prison, begging that he shares the location of Julie's other body parts so they could give her a decent burial. The response he got is truly heartbreaking.
It's always good to know that people are thinking of me, especially those who suffer because of my actions. You are correct when you speak of decency. I have none. I have no inhibition, remorse, or regret, and therefore care not one bit if your wife has a full body burial or not. I hope you are happy in the knowledge that you don't suffer alone in your loss. Your wife was not the first or the last person I killed.
Tragically, David actually got what he wanted, to torment Julie's loved ones until they could not take it anymore. Freddie, the father of Julie's 2 children, ended up taking his life in 2006. But sadly, the tragedy didn't stop there. That same year, Julie's boyfriend, Alan Taylor, who was also tormented by the fact that Julie's body was still out there, came up with a crazy plan hoping that it would help him find her remains.
The nightmares I have is actually, in a way, I'm like a murderer myself, because I have to think how he's maybe done it. You can imagine the emotional nightmares I do have. Honestly, I wouldn't wish them upon anybody.
One morning, Alan actually murdered his friend, thinking that it would get him in the same prison as David, so that he could carry out his revenge and find out where he had hidden Julie's body. Unfortunately for him, things didn't go quite as planned, and he found himself in a completely different prison after being convicted of murder. And then, 3 months into his sentence, he was found hanging in his cell, having taken his own life. He reportedly left a heartbreaking note saying that he would now be at peace with Julie. Julie's gruesome death has continued to haunt her family to this day, and what makes it worse is that her killer has never shown remorse for his action, despite having destroyed the lives of so many people. Scarily, David could actually be released in 2023 if the parole board decides that he's no longer a threat to the public. However, Julie's brother Michael is having none of this and has said that the sadistic killer should remain in prison until he reveals where he dumped his sister's other body parts.
I can't move on with my life until I know. He is sick. I want him to tell me what he did with Julie's body so I can move on with my life. He shouldn't be released until that happened.
This is truly a terrible and heartbreaking case. What this monster did to Julie and her family is unforgivable, and I really hope that he's miserable in prison and that his actions haunt him for the rest of his life. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Crime City. Thanks for watching.